Sounds good. And more good luck. Good afternoon. Oops. Test.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Soul Food Books tonight. Tonight, I am excited to be able to introduce a gentleman who has changed, well, one, he changed the face of the NBA, and two, he also has gone through an incredibly deeply beautiful human experience and has written a book about it and is going to bring that to us today. Before that happens, though, I would like to introduce a good friend of both of ours, Daddy Longlegs, to give you a little bit more of a look into this gentleman's life.
All right. Yes, Daddy Longlegs. We have a few people here, and we're expecting some of the Harlem Globetrotters to show up, so stick around. It should be fun. Well, I have the great honor to introduce my good brother in humanity and friend, Zaid Abdul-Aziz. And he gave me a beautiful review here, which I'm going to share with you as part of the introduction. As he tells his story, I suspect he's probably not going to tell you this little fact, but he, as a basketball player at every level, particularly college and professional, he was an incredibly proficient player. When he was on the court, he accomplished huge numbers if you look at time spent on the court and quality time spent on the court. Truly one of the great players in that regard. Let me read this review. It's very short, but I think it'd be a good introduction here. The book is called Darkness to Sunlight, an autobiography. You know, if you look at autobiographies of most celebrities, particularly athletes, usually it's by so-and-so with somebody else, a professional writer that helps them. In the case of Darkness to Sunlight, Zaid did it on his own, and the book has been acclaimed widely as a outstanding autobiography. For example, Amazon Books gives it a 5-star, which is the highest rating. Here's the review. Darkness to Sunlight. This was reviewed by a poet and concert pianist, Ileana La Torres, in 2007 for Amazon. Darkness to Sunlight by Zaid Abdul-Aziz is one of the greatest autobiographies ever written. Billions of people on this earth have a story to tell. Very few can express it in such a way that everyone is able to identify with and to take heart. Zaid's book is that story. At one of my piano concerts, when Zaid told me he was writing this book, I never imagined that he would be one of the few people in this world who could write such a successful story like this. I knew he was a great NBA star, and I thought his gifted talent stopped there. Wrong. Reality is harsh, but Zaid managed to present it in such a way that it was as if he was one friend talking to another friend, as personable as being in his living room sharing a cup of coffee with him. This book is riveting and heartfelt. You will not be able to put it down. Out of all the autobiographies I've ever read, and I am an avid reader, a writer, and a published poet, this is the only one that has so many profound philosophical statements that cause you to pause and think about your own life. It is on the order of the great philosophers Nietzsche, Plato, Schopenhauer. Then Zaid takes you one step beyond to the cosmos, to the cosmos. It is indeed an incredible journey. He even dedicates this book to, quote, all creatures on earth and beyond, unquote. Spiced with humor, sadness, enlightenment, and spirituality, it has all of those ingredients that go into our lives. Human beings basically have the same recipe for life with individual variations combined with different preparations and results that are brought to the table. Darkness to Sunlight truly embodies this. Zaid, I absolutely loved it, and I will definitely read it again. Ileana Latorres. That's her review, and ladies and gentlemen, Zaid Abdul-Aziz.
Thank you very much, Tim, Sarah, and your husband Clint for inviting me to this beautiful establishment. To be honest with you, I'm from New York, and when I hear soul food, I was thinking about macaroni and cheese and sweet potato pie and things like that. So when I came in, I went, whoa, this is not the soul food that I grew up in back in New York, but as the kids say, it's all good. Darkness to Sunlight was created when I was born, way back in Brooklyn in 1946. I was born in the Bedford-Stuyvesant area of Brooklyn, which is primarily black, and it's very violent back there. And as a young kid, I was in a gang. The name of the gang was called the Bishops. And it's funny how gangs back in New York, we would entitle ourselves from some religious name. Like, I was a bishop. We used to fight the chaplains, And it's funny how ironic that was, how we fought different people with religious, denominations behind us. I was a bishop. So back in New York, you had to be very careful where you went. And you had to be very, very careful not to be on the wrong turf, because you could lose your life. So that's how Brooklyn was back in those days. Being in the gang, we fought other gangs. In the Red Hook area, like I said, they had the chaplains. In the South Brooklyn area, where I went to school, they had the Italian gang called the SBB Boys, the South Brooklyn Boys. And then in Lower Manhattan, we had a Puerto Rican gang called the Hellburners. There you go, the significance, the Hellburners, again, the spiritual title. And we used to fight each other, not because we hated each other's race, but to be honest, what is a kid gonna do on a hot summer day when it's 100 degrees outside and there's 6 million people living in Manhattan and there's 3 million people living in Brooklyn? Everybody's on top of each other. And a lot of the kids or teenagers were becoming adults. And we have a lot of our emotions flowing. So the best thing to do would be to join a gang. And again, I joined the Bishops. Not so much that I was a bad person. It was because I had nothing else to do. If you look in the back of the book, you'll see two people back there. One to the left, which is my dad, and one to your right, which is my mom. My dad was from Barbados in the West Indies, and my mom she grew up in Norfolk, Virginia. And then as a little girl, she moved to New Jersey, where her sister, my grandmother, moved from Norfolk. Then when they moved to Brooklyn, New York, I was born. I was born on April 7th. And there's something very special about April 7th, and I'll come back to that. But like I said about soul food, I lived over a soul food restaurant. And back in those days, they used to have a jukebox. And you used to put 25 cents or 10 cents in the jukebox, and they used to play music over and over again. So sometimes I used to, you know, on my bad days, like, because I was born in a home of dysfunction, my home was like Grand Central Station. You could see so many different people come and go, people that I never knew. And they would come there, stay the night, and in the morning they were gone. And every day there was somebody else, men and women. There was a lot of heroin use in my neighborhood. There was a lot of alcoholism in my neighborhood. Matter of fact, I was one of the only ones to make it out. Most of my gang, the bishops, they got killed by overdoses of heroin. And then a lot of my other friends, they died on liver, a cirrhosis of the liver, by drinking that cheap wine. We thought grapes, you know, and drinking those real cheap wines, we thought it was grapes, but in fact it was synthetic. And that, you know, the synthetic properties in the alcohol just ate up the liver. So most of my friends died of heroin and wine. So I escaped. Why? I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out why. It's like we've heard of people being in a plane crash, and you know they're on the plane, a small plane, and 17 people die, and there were 18 people on the plane, and that person made it. That person goes throughout their whole life thinking, why me? Why was it me and not, why did I make it? And this is what I do. Sometimes I want to pinch myself because, can you imagine? I'm the furthest you can be away from Brooklyn, Seattle. I'm the furthest a person become from my home. And it's amazing to me. Sometimes I have to pinch myself to figure, you know, to try to figure out why I made it and my other friends didn't make it. Not only that, I went to school in Iowa. So I'm coming from a black community, and I'm going to a strictly 95% white community in Ames, Iowa. I was 17 years old, and when I got off the plane, I was scared to death because I had never seen so many white people in my life in one area, because I was coming from a black area. Of course, in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, you know, we had white guy, he owned the candy store, or we had the baker, or we had the physician, or we had the pharmacist. But this was the first time I had seen so many white people in my life. So when I got to Iowa, which I'll come back to, when I got to Iowa, it was amazing. I mean, you know, how I ended up in Iowa. And of course, to go to Iowa, you have to, Iowa State is a very good school, extremely good school. George Washington Garver went to school there, and one of the astronauts that died in the Challenger, she went to school there too. If you look up Iowa State University, academically it's extremely good school. So I go there. I go there with a public school education. And what I mean by a public school education is this. I thought I was a pretty smart kid. When the test came, when the English instructor gave me the test, I looked down on it, and there was, it says verb. What is a verb? Then it had examples: house, mouse, run. Of course it's run, right? I put run, right? But what kind of education is that? So when I got to Iowa, my first day of English 101, my teacher, Mr. Rogel, he comes out, he gets into his diatribe, and he says, welcome to English 101. I'm your teacher, Mr. Rogel. Welcome to my class. He said, I'm a very tough teacher, and in this semester, we're gonna write 5 themes. And I want those themes to be a minimum of 500 pages, 500 words, and your first theme is on Monday. Any questions? So I'm the only black kid in the class. So I raised my hand. Mr. Rogel said, yes. I said, Mr. Rogel, what's a theme? Mr. Rogel said, you don't know what a theme is? He said, speak to me after class. So after class, I met with him, and he says, where are you from? I said, I'm from Brooklyn. He says, you don't know what a theme is? Because in Iowa, kids grew up with the themes in high school. Here I was coming from Brooklyn. I never wrote a theme before. So he said, and then I said, I want to show him how really smart I am. So I said, house, noun, run, verb, go like that. And Mr. Rogel looked over his glasses. He said, yeah, but how are you going to pass this course if you've never written a theme before? I said, I can pass it. He said, okay. He said, these are the topics that are going to be on the theme. I looked up Moby Dick, Oedipus Rex, Homer's Iliad, and I never heard of those things before. And I said, wow, I am in trouble. I am in trouble. So the first day, so I told Mr. Rogel, I said, Mr. Rogel, what I would like to do is write a theme, not on those topics, but something that I understand, like how I came to Iowa State. He said, I'll allow that. Write your theme on how you came to Iowa State. I said, okay. Next day, I got my little theme book, the little blue book, went up, sat in the first row, and tried to write a theme. It was hard, but I did it. I counted the words, 498, 499, 500. That was it. I turned it in, and to be honest with you, I figured I had gotten a C, but that wouldn't be too bad for a guy coming from Brooklyn, getting a C in a prestigious university like Iowa State. So I was willing to get a C. Came in that next week, sifted through my papers. I saw my paper, it looked like somebody had bled on my paper. My paper was filled with mechanical errors. I had over 350 of them. So Mr. Rogel says, Donald, I'd like to speak with you. I went up, he says, drop the course because you're not going to make it. You've already failed because we only allow like 50 mechanical errors per semester. You have 300, you almost have 7 times the amount. And I go, no, Mr. Rogel, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm staying. I'm going to pass this. He said, drop the course. I said, no. So I tried. Next paper, I got 500 mechanical errors. I improved a little bit, which education should be geared to improvement and not punishment. So the next day, I got 200. Then my final paper, so my grade was a big, fat F. I was hurt. I was really, really hurt. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to go back to Brooklyn, but there's a woman here who used to take care of me back in Ames. Her name was Dorothy Erskine. And she said, Donald, she said, I'm not going to allow you to go back to Brooklyn. You stay here. You came here to study. You'll take that English 101 over again. You'll pass it. That whole summer, I studied how to write, and I studied really, really hard. And I went back the next year, and I got a B in English 101. The next year, English 102, I got a B. English 103, I got a C. Journalism, I got an A. And there was another course I took, I can't remember what it was, but I got an A in that too. So that's not too bad for a kid from Brooklyn. So what happened after I wrote my book, there's a chapter in my book called English 101, and I talk about that in my book. And what I did, I went online to see if Mr. Rogel was still alive, and I found out he is. He's like 85 years old. So I wrote Mr. Rogel a letter. I said, Dear Mr. Rogel, I hope you remember me. My name is Don Smith. I was a little black kid that was in your class when I was 17 years old. You remember you flunked me. And I said, I just want you to know, I just wrote my autobiography, and I wanted to send you a copy of my autobiography, and I hope to hear from you pretty soon. So, so that was really exciting. So let's get back to the soul food restaurant. My mother was an alcoholic. My mother, Juanita Louise Smith, she died in 1998 of Alzheimer's disease. But as any kid, I had the urge to love my mother. I had the urge to, even though my life was very, very dysfunctional, I had that desire to love my parents. But for some reason, they didn't allow it. And there were a lot of secrets in my family. And as we know, I mean, if you look around in some of your families, there's probably a lot of secrets that we hide. And the secrets we better not talk about, because we might get admonished from our parents, or we might get admonished from our cousins or uncles or whatever, or aunts. The big secret in my family was my mother's alcoholism. My mother worked as an operator, telephone operator in Brooklyn, the Bell telephone system in Brooklyn. She worked downtown on Hoyt and Skimmerhorn, right downtown Brooklyn. And nobody ever would tell my mother to, slow down. After my mother came from work, she went to work about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. She came home at 11. She went right in the tavern and started drinking every day. She didn't drink hard liquor, but she drank beer, but she drank so much of it that it started to cause a problem. She would sit down there, she would drink and drink and drink, and I was like 5 or 6 years old. I would tell my grandmother, "Where's my mommy? Where's my mommy?" But I knew where she was. She was across the street drinking. So what I did, went down the steps, went across the street, endangered myself as 5 years old, crossing Vanderbilt Avenue, which is a big street in Brooklyn, right off Atlantic Avenue. I went across the street. My mom saw me and said, "Boy, what are you doing here? You better get back across the street. You better get your butt upstairs." I said, "Mommy, but I love you." "Boy, get your butt upstairs." So I run back across the street, and my bathroom was in the hallway upstairs. So what I used to do, run up the steps, open the bathroom, take a pee, and go into my little room. As I would lay down, I'd start crying. "My mommy don't like me. My mommy don't want me. My mommy don't like me." But then I used to hear the music coming up from the soul food restaurant. They were playing songs by great groups like the Platters, Fats Domino, these type of people. And I used to memorize those. Elvis Presley used to sing. So I used to memorize those songs. So what I did, I became a doo-wop singer. I was a doo-wop singer back in the streets of New York. And then, but when the people used to put their money in the jukebox, every time this person sang, I used to get out of my bed, get in the fetal position, and put my ear to the floor and try to listen to her. Because when she spoke, this woman who sang, it seems like she was telling me her story and my own. So I used to wait. Elvis used to sing, the Fats Domino used to sing, then the Platters used to sing, and then this woman used to sing. And I get off like I said, I get off the bed, put my ear on the floor, and listen to her. And come to find out that that woman was the great Billie Holiday. So me and Billie Holiday had an attachment that I can't explain to anybody here. But I'm sure some of you have attachments with people that you probably can't explain yourself. So me and Billie had an attachment. And then I mentioned that I found out what the attachment is or was. And that was we were born on the same date, April 7th. So there's a connection between me and Billie Holiday. So in my gang, we used to fight this gang called the Hilltoppers. So the book opens up where I'm making Molotov cocktails to throw at the Hilltoppers. And what you do, the way you make a Molotov cocktail, you go over and get that little Coke bottle, and you fill it. I would go to the gasoline tank at a gas station and take the residue drops of gasoline and halfway fill up that Coke bottle. it took like maybe 300 drops to fill a Coke bottle halfway. I would take like a little handkerchief, dip it in and wet it, have the wet part on the top and the dry part kind of in the middle, and light it and throw it. And when you throw it, if it would ignite on that gang, then their clothes would get all burned up and you just walk away like nothing happened. So that was my job to do in the Bishops. So one day I was up on a street called St. Mark's Avenue and Bergen Street. There was a little factory around there, and that's where we used to hang out. And from it was a hill coming down from the top to where we were. So there was about 15 of us, all brothers. We were talking about those white boys, we'd have kicked their butt, and if they mess with us, we'll deal with them. Just then I looked up the hill and I saw a guy coming down on a bicycle. It was an Italian guy. And my gang knew who he was. His name was Bruno. So Bruno came down, and on his hip, I could see a sword glittering, shining, because as he rode the bicycle, the sword was making, it was glimmering. And he took the sword out of the sheet, and he said, okay, anybody want to do anything in your gang? Do it now. And he took, he had the sword in his right hand. And the brothers who were talking so much about they're going to do this and do that, they kind of turned their heads and start scratching like that. And he said, if you want to do something, you know where you can find me, up at the candy store. That's where I'll be. I'm not afraid of you guys. That gesture showed me something, it taught me something. Number one, if a person's not afraid of death, he can beat hundreds of people if a person's not afraid of death. And number two, it taught me that those guys I was hanging out with, even though they were older than me, they didn't have any heart. So from that time on, I left that gang. And that's what saved me, because I figured, that's it. They don't have any guts to let a guy come down with a sword in front of 18 guys and nobody do anything. So that was a way. That was why I left my gang, and that's when I decided to be on my own. And most of my life, ever since I was a kid, I've been pretty much on my own. I don't know what a nuclear family is. I don't know what it is. A woman that marries me, it's hard to understand me, because I never had that in my family. Well, you come home, like the wife says, okay, dinner's at 5 o'clock. I'm there at 5 o'clock. I don't know what that is. I might show up at 7, not thinking that I did anything wrong. I don't do it on purpose, but it was the way I grew up. So even at this age, I'm trying to be better at it. But sometimes we become what we were when we were young, and not using that as an excuse, but sometimes that was the hand that was played me. That was the card I had. That was my ace. At 16 years old, excuse me, I was involved in something that scared the living daylights out of me. I was up on St. Mark's Avenue, and a guy I know named Linwood, he lives on St. Mark's Avenue. He introduced me to a guy named Jimmy. And Jimmy looked like E.T. He had a big oval head with a little face. He looked just like E.T. And when I looked at Jimmy, I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I knew Linwood, but I had never met Jimmy before. Come to find out that Jimmy was a cat burglar. And Linwood introduced me to a cat burglar, and he took us out one day to go up to Flatbush Avenue and he wanted us to go with him on a burglary. So being a young kid, being 16 years old, I don't know, most young kids don't know what accessory to a crime is. If a kid is doing something, if we go out, say me, you, and Rudy there, we go out, we're all together, and the police will charge us with a crime if we're together, and we get the same weight. As a kid, I didn't know that, so I figured if Jimmy was doing it, me and Linwood weren't doing it, so we're innocent. That's what I thought. So Jimmy goes up the fire escape, he opens a window, He goes in, he takes a purse, he takes a wallet, he comes out, he goes to the wallet, there's $300 in there. He goes to the purse, there's $200 in there. We got $500. Guess where we go? We go to Coney Island. I get my hot dogs, I get my knishes, I get my cotton candy. I go on the Cyclone, I do all these things. I'm having a lot of fun at somebody else's expense. So I don't think I'm guilty, even though I'm sharing in the profit. And there was never any condition that we were looking out for him. There was never any condition. We didn't plan it. We just was with him. Matter of fact, we were 2 blocks down the street waiting for him at a little playground. On this particular night, August 2nd, 1962, I was just a young kid. Jimmy comes out. He says, "You guys leave. I'm going to do it." We said, "You're going to do what, Jimmy?" So he went in an alley. So me and Lynn would start yelling, "Jimmy, Jimmy, come back." He was gone. We walked down about 5 blocks, and Lynn would say, "Well, we better get out of here." I said, "Well, let's stay. Let's see what happened to him." I said, "The police might get him." It's funny that Flatbush Avenue was primarily all white people. So I decided to stay there and wait and see what happens. About 15 minutes later, we hear an ambulance. We hear police go, so police go by us. They see these 2 brothers. They turn around and come back. And we take off. I start running. Linwood starts running. And then the police starts running. The police shoots in the air. He says, "Halt, I'll shoot. Halt, down." So I got down. They handcuffed me, and they took me back to the scene of the crime. When I got there, there was blood all over the walls. What Jimmy had done, he had hit a woman in the head with a baseball bat. And that's what I was facing. My picture was on the back page of the New York News. 3 teens caught in a brutal attack. I knew nothing about it. But they had us in no bail. And I was facing 60 years on each. I had 4 felonies. I was facing 15 years on each felony. But I had an ace in the hole. And the ace in the hole was my father. As you see here, my father was a police officer, and during that time he was a detective in the city of New York. The first thing my father did was separate me between me and Jimmy. They separated me from Linwood and Jimmy. So I became separate. So my dad petitioned to the judge. He said, "Your Honor," he said, "if you put my son away, you're going to ruin his life. He's a good basketball player. He's 6'5". They say he's going to be a great basketball player. Cut him a break. Please, Your Honor, cut him a break." Well, we had the toughest judge in the city. And I put his name in here as Dr. Mann, and I used 2 N's. Mann. And I used 2 N's, but his name wasn't Mann. Everybody knew who his judge was. This judge's daughter was raped by a black man. And any minority that came before this judge, he would give him some time. A perfect example, one black guy came before the judge on a murder beef. Mr. Mann, Judge Mann said, "Boy," he said, "stand up." He said, "You ready for your time?" He said, "Attorney, you ready for sentences?" And the guy shook his head. He says, "Yes, I'm ready for sentencing." He said, "Okay, stand up." He said, "Daniel Jones, you have been found guilty of manslaughter." He said, "I got good news for you and bad news for you." This is Judge Mann. He said, "I got good news for you," and I said, "I got bad news for you. Which do you want first?" He said, "Give me the bad news." He took his gavel, he hit the table, he said, 66 years in the federal prison. Get this schlum get him out of my courtroom right now. So Daniel Jones said, "Your Honor, what's the good news?" He said, "I could have given you life." That was the good news. And I was supposed to be before this judge. But guess what happened? And I don't know if my father pulled some strings. I don't know what happened. On the day I was supposed to be sentenced, Judge Mann got sick. He wasn't there. There was another judge called McDonald, and McDonald sentenced me to 3 years of Rikers Island. But he remanded me over to the probation department. Jimmy got 60 years, and Linwood did 10. So now when I tell people that, it's really incredible, but it's making sense to me now. You know why? I was supposed to write this book. If a person doesn't have a story, there's no way he's going to write a book. So even though that was a negative aspect of my life, one of the most traumatic things that ever happened to me, but now it makes sense to me because I was supposed to write the book. I was supposed to make a story about that. So the youth could read it and say, wait a minute, you know, when I'm walking down the street, if a Honda comes up and says, hey, you get in the car. Yeah, if I get in the car could be stolen, even though it's your friend. So we got to think about those things. And I tell my kids that all the time. I say, be careful who you associate with, because you might get in the wrong situation and you might have to pay the consequences of being in the wrong situation. Becoming an All-American. I was one of the greatest players. It's a Big 8, Big 12 now, but it was a Big 8 back then. I was one of the greatest players in the Big 8, and the only one that was, was Will Chamberlain that ever had this, the stats that I had. But why? I'm not bragging about that, but I had to write a book, right? I got 6 kids. I had to write a book. Even though in times of agony and pain, I was divorced 10 years ago, was another bad thing that happened to me, one of the worst things. But you have to write a book. So I began writing this book in 2003, and I didn't know where I was going with it. I just knew that I had a story to tell. I had a lot of experiences to share with people, and I began doing it. I didn't even know I was going to make it. It was one of the hardest things I ever had to do in my life was write this book. But the place I wrote it was at the Northgate Mall, and there was an old temporary library across the street. They built a new library since then, but there was a temporary library. So I used to write there at the Northgate Mall, the temporary library. Then I used to go to Green Lake and to write it. So then I have all my manuscripts. I had about 2 stacks up off the ground that high, 3 years writing. Now, a big problem. Now I wrote all of that. How am I going to put it together? Right? So I go, wow, I got all these papers. Now how am I going to put them together? But I did the chore. I finished my book. So in my Tai Chi class, there was a woman there named Nelda Dance. And there was a Japanese woman. She came over to me and she said, Zaid, you see that woman right there? You finished your book? I nodded. She said, that woman, she editor. She can help you. Ask her. Talk to her. So I went over. I said, excuse me. I said, my name is Zaid, and your name. I was told your name is Nelda. I said, I finished my book. I got the manuscript. I said, I need an editor. Do you want to think about helping me? Getting this in a book form? Because I said I did all the work. So she said, well, bring me a chapter. So I brought her a chapter of my childhood, and she said, that's pretty good. She said, you have any more? I said, yeah, I got more. I'll be over at your house. Where do you live? The next day, I brought all the manuscript to her. She said, wow, you did that? How long did it take? I said, it took me 3 years to do that. Of course, my wife, she didn't like it because I'm not working, right? I'm doing this. So again, a lot of people who have dreams, sometimes they can't do certain things because they're restricted, whether you're married or whether, and I think the only thing that allowed me to do it was my upbringing. I said, well, if she wants to leave me, she just has to go. I got to do this. I don't know why. I got to do this. That's like, a lot of guitar players or saxophone players or musicians. They live a tough life because they got to do their gig from 10 at night to 4 in the morning, and the wife is home just twiddling her thumbs, and so and that's why there's a lot of divorce among people of who do arts, because sometimes people don't understand. But I understood. I said I got to do this. So we met, and I call it like when you do your laundry. You take your dirty clothes, you put them in there, you put the bleach in there, you put the Tide in there, and you turn it on, and then you look at it, it looks pretty clean, but if you put some more Tide and maybe some more bleach, it'll get cleaner. So you put some more in there. So when do you stop? When do you say, okay, my clothes is as white as they could possibly be, and they're as clean as they possibly could be? So we came to that decision. We said, that's enough. We think we got everything. And so then I went to the printer, and the book came out in 2003. And then I spoke, my first speaking engagement was at the Northgate Library, and a whole bunch of people showed up. The previous mayor came, Nichols. I was there with Mayor Nichols, and and there was a lot of people there, and I sold a lot of books in the opening. And I've been going around the country, like Tim said. Amazon picked my book as a huge literary success. I'm very fortunate. My first run, it was 2,500 books that I sold out. Then the second run was another 2,500 books I sold out. And then this is my third run. I got about 6 cases left, so I got to get some more books. So it's becoming very, very popular, my book. And some people ask me, they go, wow, but we haven't heard too much of your book. And what do you think about that? So I tell people, I go, wait a minute. My book is a nonfiction book. It's true. And I said, today what a lot of people want, they want to be like an ostrich. They want to put their head in the sand. And sometimes people don't want to read nonfiction books or memoirs or autobiographies because they might learn something about themselves. Oh yeah, people go out and get Harry Potter, which it's fiction. But so a lot of people they prefer to read fiction. Excuse me, they prefer to read fiction because when we look at what's going on in the world today, it's kind of scary. And I mean, who wants to read about my mom being an alcoholic and my dad being a police officer? He lost his badge in the city of New York and this and that. And who wants to learn about alcoholism? Who wants to learn about my life? Who wants to, who do that? No, people want fiction, because there's a lot of stuff going on today. So that's why maybe some people haven't heard about my book, even though, like Tim said, Amazon picked my book as a huge literary success. And I'm very hopeful, and I know that this book will gain more popularity in the world. I mean, when I was in New York, I was on the train going home, and I was a woman with a baby, and she said, "Oh yeah." She said, "What?" We start talking. She said, "Well, what brings you to town?" I said, "My sister passed away." She said, "I'm sorry to hear this. This was last August." I said, "Where are you going?" She said, "I'm a dancer." She said, "I'm taking my baby home. I just got back from. I took my baby to a babysitter." And she says, "Well, I'm sorry about your sister." And she said, "What do you do?" I said, "I used to play professional basketball." She said, "You did?" I said, "Yeah." I said, and I showed her a copy of my book. She said, "Oh, wow." She said, "When I was in Australia, I read that book. I read that book in Australia." So my book was read in Australia, And so I get emails every day from people like from Germany, from England, from New York, from all over the world, Sweden. Some people compliment me to say, "Zaid, thank you for writing the book," which means a lot to me because, I did a lot to get this book out. And so when people say, "I like your book," and it was a really good book and I learned from it, it really makes me feel good because, it seems like I've accomplished something at this age, And when I was on the bus today, I got on the bus, I was downtown, and I was going down. I lost my wallet a few weeks ago. I went down to the Metro, lost and found, and I was on the bus, and I saw some young kids on there. They were in the 6th or 7th grade. So the girl said, she said, "Ma, you're tall. You're tall. How you get so big?" I said, "I ate my spinach. I ate my spinach. I think you better eat your spinach too." So she started laughing. She said, "I don't like spinach." I said, "What do you like?" She said, I said, "You like salad?" I said, "That's good. Have some salad." And, we start talking like this. There was about 5 kids on the bus. Then they said, "Did you ever play basketball?" And then I wasn't going to tell them I played, because I'm kind of shy when it comes to that. Tim will tell you. So, but I said, then I thought about it. I said, maybe I can make these kids, maybe I could give them some hope. So I said, "Yeah, I used to play." And they said, "Who you play for?" I said, "I play for the Sonics." "Hey, what, do you play for the Sonics?" So then I said, "Well, what can I do to motivate them?" So I reached in my bag, and I gave them some autographed pictures. And I said, "Yeah, you contact me. Get in touch with me." And I said, "If you don't get in touch with me, I'll never talk to you again." So they laughed about it. And so I really felt good about that today, that, the young kids, I was able to, influence somebody or be a role model. Charles Barkley said he's not a role model. I disagree with that. I think playing in the NBA or playing for the Harlem Globetrotters, if you're a professional person, it comes with the territory. This is what you do. And you do it not because you want to get a pat on the shoulder, pat on the back like you're a baby hugger. No, genuinely doing it because it's your duty to do it. So when Charles Barkley said he's not a role model, I disagree with that. I think each NBA player should be a role model. Some players in the NBA don't want to sign autographs. A kid will come up and say, "Oh, can I have your autograph?" He says, "No, kid, get away from me." That gets me mad. And people who do that, I will tell them about themselves. I'll tell you why. Who do we think we are? I've flown, see this bag here? I've had this bag since freshman in college. This bag has gone 2 million miles with me, right? It's been everywhere. This bag has been everywhere, right? But I remember one time I had this bag on the plane, and we were landing in O'Hara International Airport. And then the pilot says, "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for flying Delta. We're on our final approach. We're going into O'Hara Airport." He said, "I just want to tell you the temperature outside, we got 3 feet of snow, and it's 10 below zero." And I opened up that little shutter thing, and I looked out there. You couldn't see anything. The pilot can't see the runway. They can't see it. And he's coming down. And he's going, and I said, wow, this thing can end at any time. So why can't we be humble? Why can't we sign autographs? Because we can go down at any time. So that's when I first started realizing that, because I said, whoa, I'm up 35,000 feet, and we're going down with 5,000 feet away from the runway, and he can't see anything. He's just going by the instruments he has. He's going by the computer. And a wind can come up, just blow us over. So that's why I said to myself, I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna sign autographs. I'm gonna care about kids, and that's what I'm gonna do. That's what I'm gonna do. I got 6 of them myself. So I'm so grateful to be able to have played in the NBA. I'm so grateful to have gone to Iowa State. I'm so grateful to have so many different friends and colleagues throughout the world that, who I care about, and they care about me. I'm just so grateful I was able to write my life story in a book form, and not too many people can say that. I mean, there's not too many authors walking around, who have written books. A lot of people want to do it. I wanted to do it like 20 years ago, but the time wasn't right. And I'm just blessed to be able to go, and this is my legacy. I mean, if this book, it could change lives. And people have called me, and one guy I met, he said, "Zaid, thank you so much for writing that book." Guy's from Utah, and I'm not Utah, Montana. He's from Montana, and I met him in Whole Foods a couple of years ago. He called me 2 months later. He said, Zaid, I want to talk to you. Let's meet at the same place. I said, okay. I went. He came up to me, he took my hand, he said, thank you. He said, this book is incredible. He said, your book changed my life. Then he was gone. And I was standing there, I was going, well, tell me why. But some things are left unsaid. Some things we don't know. I don't know what he, I wanted to investigate to see what made him like my book. But some things are just made to be that way, and I let him go without, I realized as he left, I said, that's his personal business. If my book changed his life, he's not obligated to tell me what changed his life about my book. You know, I'm sure if he lives in Montana, maybe he thought I was a black Muslim who, followed Farrakhan or somebody, and when he read my book, he said, whoa, I didn't know it was like that, because I explain some things what Islam is in my book. Because if you took Indonesia, they're all Muslim. If you took Malaysia, they're all Muslim. They're not black, they look like this. You see, if you took Russia, there's a lot of Muslims in Russia, in Germany, and England, and Sweden, and they're different hues and different complexions. So, but when I was coming up back in the '60s, if you told somebody if you was Muslim, you hate white people. That's how we grew up thinking that. So I mean, we got a lot of people who are Muslims. They're not white. I mean, they're not black. Cat Stevens. Britney Spears is thinking about becoming a Muslim. So, they said one of the astronauts that went on the moon, he became a Muslim. It was one of them. I forgot which one. But Jacques Cousteau. Islam has no color to it. But when I was growing up, that was an impediment because when I was growing up back in the 60s and 70s, the only viable form of Islam in this country was the Nation of Islam. And we know the story with that one. Most of us do anyway. So I'm going to open it up for questions, and just don't hesitate, and just ask me, and I'll do the best I can to answer it. Can we go right here?
When are you going to make a movie about your life?
Thank you. Well, I mean, to make movies, they become quite expensive. When I played NBA basketball play, I didn't make that much money. We did it for the love of the game, but Spike Lee was here 6 months ago, and I went down to Meany Hall to speak to him. And of course, I guess prior to 9/11, I probably could have went in and sat down and talked to him, but they wouldn't allow me because of security reasons. So they whisked him away, because we got a lot of nuts out here. So I got to say, thought I was a nut. You're just looking at me. They don't know who I am. But anyway, I gave him 2 copies of my book, and I said, Spike, I would like you to be the one to write the story, to do the movie. And I haven't heard from him yet. I think it would be a perfect marriage because he's from Brooklyn, and I'm from Brooklyn. I was just inducted into the Brooklyn Hall of Fame. It's up there with Michael Jordan. He's from Brooklyn. Lenny Wilkins and Red Auerbach, the great Boston coach, and Chris Mullin, and a lot of Bernard King, and people like this. So anyway, I think it would be a good marriage because the New Jersey Nets are moving to Brooklyn. So they're building the arena as we sit here now speaking. Brooklyn almost is like Times Square now. I mean, there's a buzz in the city. Brooklyn is going to be like Times Square because the Nets are moving there, and the Long Island Railroad right there, they're building an arena right there, right near the Williamsburg Bank building. This is the Williamsburg Bank building right here. And Magic Johnson bought that building, and he turned it into condominiums, and that's right across the street from the prospective new stadium. So hopefully, it costs money to make movies. So hopefully, if I could get the backing, I think it would be a great movie. I saw The Blind Side, and with all due respect, this book is maybe 20 times better than The Blind Side because it deals with more things. The Blind Side dealt with a kid, big guy. He lives with a white family, and his mother's a crackhead. But this book has more of a personality to it, more little tidbits and more twist. Like the guy, he didn't go to jail. The Blind Side guy, I did. And hopefully, I could get that done. I've never done a movie before, but I did try writing the screenplay, but that's too deep. Writing a book, I can write a book, but when you're writing a score, you got a lot of people you have to deal with. The distance and this person speaking, that person speaking. It took me like 2 weeks just to write one scene, in Brooklyn. I don't have the skills to do that, but hopefully Spike will get in touch with me. Also, I sent two copies of my books to Will Smith. I sent two to Tavis Smiley, because so I'm trying to get the word out there. So I think it's going to happen, but it's not on my time. It's not on my time. It's going to happen, but sometimes you have to wait, and then things happen, and God might bring people into my life that just want to do it, and it's done. And, that's the way I see it. So, thank you for that question. Yes.
When you were trimming down all of the source material to make the book,
Uh huh.
were there any stories or anecdotes that you regret having to pull out?
Oh yes, thank you. I spoke to Tim with that earlier. What happened was I wrote two things. The first thing I wrote was I was writing how it's ridiculous to legislate smoking. Like, there's a law, you must be 15 feet from a bus stop to smoke a cigarette. I think that's dumb, because how can you legislate that? You're going to take out a tape measure, so you're 14 feet, so you're good to go. See what I mean? So I wrote a chapter about that, how it's ridiculous to legislate smoking. But my editor said, don't put that in the book. She said, you know why? I said, why? She said, because if you put that in the book, people are going to be in the back. I mean, smokers are going to be in the back. They're going to be challenging you, and people won't be thinking about your book. They'll be thinking about that issue. That will come up, and that would have the precedence, and not so much your book. So with all regret, I ripped those pages up, and then we got in a big argument, me and Nelda. I said, boy, it took me 2 weeks to write that, and you just told me to rip it up. She said, yeah, because she said, you don't want that. You don't want that. I said, I don't care. She said, look, you don't want that. So, and there was another one. I went to school with one of the greatest wrestlers that ever lived. His name was Dan Gable, and the Russians called him the Machine, the Machine. And then I was writing about how he was 180-0, and he fought a guy from the University of Washington called Owings, and Owings beat Dan Gable. And I was writing about that. But then she told me, Zaid, she said, this is your book. Why are you writing about a wrestler? She said, rip that up. And I said, no, I'm not going to rip that up. And so we got in a big argument. I didn't speak to her for about a week. And then finally I said, she's right. And everything she told me, editors are different. Everything she told me turned out to be the truth. Don't do things. So, so that was two instances where I had to rip up like a month of work. And we got into I was trying to tell her about me living in the black society and how she's a white girl and she doesn't understand. And she said, don't go there, Zaid. She said, it's just not going to work. Don't bring any color into this. It won't work. So then I didn't speak to her for another 2 weeks. And I said, Nelda, I'm sorry. I said, you're right. I said, all right. So every day I called her a few weeks ago. I said, Nelda, I love you very much. I said, this is Zaid. How you doing? So she was happy to have her. So she's a very special person. And sometimes when I do bigger, they wanted me to do a speak. They want me to speak at Microsoft. A guy by the name of what's his name? Glenn. He wants me to speak at Microsoft. So that I'm gonna invite Nelda to a bigger book signings, so I can introduce her to the people. I invited her to my first one at Northgate Library, and she got up and people clapped for her, and she gave her a hand because, I mean, my book was the Oldsmobile when I finished it, but she helped me make it a Mercedes, so I owe her that. Yeah, question? Yes. tell my younger. Oh wow, that's a good. I've never been asked that before. Yeah. Well, I don't know how to answer that question because even now I still feel young. You know, even though I'm 65 years old, I don't look it. You know, and I think very young. I like to laugh. I like to like a kid. I like to joke. You know, Daddy Long Legs, and I get a kick out of my calling him Daddy Long Legs. And we laugh a lot. And I like things. I wasn't an athlete per se. I was a prodigy. I was an athletic prodigy. So everything was in my head. So that when the coaches used to write stuff on the blackboard, that used to bother me because it would slow things down too much for me. So I have like a compulsive disorder, is to do things on time, like that. So that's why the book wasn't. I mean, even though the book was the hardest thing I ever did, it gave me a schedule. Yeah, you know. So yeah, I did relive my childhood, and now I have there's a part when I went to Saudi Arabia, and I signed a contract over there, and I lost $170,000 cash, and and I suffered a lot. And when I came back, I had an apartment building in Houston, and then I invested in a volleyball team called the Seattle Smashers. I threw $40,000 into that. My apartment building went under because I moved my friends in there, and they didn't want to pay rent. So half of the rent I had to come up with, and then you know, then I was taking care of my mother, paying her rent, taking care of my sister, give her money every month. So I turned around. When I got back to the States, I had zero. So my wife, my ex-wife, packed up and left me, took the kids and left me. Had a home on Vashon Island, and she just packed up and left me. And I'm in the house all by myself saying, okay, what am I going to do now? And the heat was too much for my wife, my ex-wife, because she was she came from a family of discipline. And when I made that mistake, but you can't call something a mistake if you don't know. But she packed up, she couldn't take the heat, and she filed for divorce, and she left me. Shook my kids, and they all left. She knows now that she made a mistake, but it's too late. So she's living in her little private hell right now because my kids know who I am, and they could see. Kids know. And so anyway, you know, I went through that. And then, but something came great out of that I remarried. Now I have a little Zaid, a little girl who looks just like me. And we are like this. So she wouldn't have been here if I didn't go through that hell. See, so she was like a gift to me. She was like a gift to me that, and what I try to do, I try to be her little friend. You know, even though I'm her dad, we're friends, you know, and we share and we love each other. And she knows a lot about me, and she looks just like me, as Tim will tell you. So yeah, so that's I'm reliving my childhood again, being with my daughter, and I'm trying to keep her clear of certain things. Of course, she's got to be the woman that she's going to become, but you know, I just hope that whatever I've done, you know, will influence her in the future. And she's very pivotal in this book because there's something she does in this book that makes the book really what it is. I mean, it's a twist. There's 3 twists in this book when you're going to go, wow, because it goes like, you know, it's like Kaiser Sose, you know, the usual suspects. So all of a sudden it goes, whoop, and you go, whoa, where did that come from? You know, I'm limping throughout the book, you know, and I put on a limp, you know, and then I'm walking straight, you know. So I did it purposely. You know, I did it purposely to give a shocking effect, especially when I was in prison. There's something that happens to me there, and also to a close friend of mine. Let me tell you what happened. It's probably one of the only instances that this has ever happened. He played for Iowa State. I owe everything to this man. His name is Hank Whitney. So it was a Friday night. It was about 7 o'clock at night. My coach said, Zaid, this guy, he's a standout at Iowa State. I want you to play against him. And if you do good against him, they might give you a scholarship to go to school. I was like 16 years old. I said, what's a scholarship? They said, you don't know what a scholarship is? I said, no. They said, they pay your way to go to school. I said, well, what am I going to study? You see, I didn't know anything. I'm a public school guy, right? So anyway, I went down. I played against Hank Whitney for about a half an hour. And then when I finished, I looked over. I was trying to get a response. He was talking to my YMCA coach over there. I'm trying to see if if I was really good or not. Hank Whitney came over to me and he said, put out his hand. He said, I never met anybody who can jump higher than me. He said, I'm going to call Iowa State to see if they're going to offer you a contract. I mean, a scholarship. So contracts, NBA, offer you a scholarship. So what happened was I said, sure, a scholarship, they're going to pay for me to go to school? You're kidding me. I'm not going to get a scholarship. Because my hope in life, I was going to be a stock clerk downtown Wall Street, you know, in a garment district downtown where you push those clothes around Barney's to Barney's and Macy's, and they have little racks, and you push these wagons throughout the city. That's what I was going to do. It paid pretty good. It paid like $5 an hour. So that's what I was going to become. That's the only. So I went out. Then I looked at Hank, and he said, "Never met anybody who could jump higher than me." He said, "I'll call Iowa State." I said, "Sure, they're not going to have me." About 2 weeks later, Hank said, "You've been accepted." I was accepted to Iowa State without ever being seen. They never even looked at me. They didn't even know how I looked, but on Hank Whitney's recommendation. So I owe a lot to Hank Whitney, because without him being my mentor, I would not be here. So that's why I try to be mentors of other kids. We have some very good candidates for basketball players, but these kids need mentors. They need people to really stick with them and help them. And me and Tim, we know a few guys who I know one guy, he's 14 years old, he's like 6'5", and this kid is good. But he looks just like Hakeem Olajuwon. But this kid is good, and he just needs somebody. So I'm going to do what Hank Whitney did for me, to pass it down to him. That's my duty. Question? Okay. Yes, Rudy. Well, I didn't know what was going on, because, like I said, I was a prodigy. I'm not interested in. There's one thing I don't like, because my dad, he worked for Nelson Rockefeller. He was his personal photographer, and on Don Smith night in Iowa, I'll show it to you. On the last game I ever played, my dad took all these pictures. And these pictures are wonderful, and there was no digital cameras at that time. But if you look at these pictures, they're incredible pictures. That's how good my dad was. That's how good my dad was. He was a great. So I remember when I saw the publicity man. His name was what was his name? Ed something, Hal Dugan or something like that. I see this guy at the Campanile at the clock, Iowa State. I see this guy running toward me. It was snowing out, and I said, "Man, he must be cold." He runs up to me and he says, Zaid, you did it." So he was jumping up and down. So I looked at him. I saw jumping up and down too. Yeah, I said, "Yeah, I did it. I said, "I did what?" He said, "You made the Olympic team." I said, yeah, but what is the Olympic team? I didn't even know what it was. See, so just call me the Black Forrest Gump, if you will. Things didn't excite me like they excited other people. I just, I said, okay, I'm an All-American. I was picked to the Olympic team. Oh, okay, all right. So what? So some people would have got a big head, and they would have thought they were better. So when I was drafted, I think I wasn't happy, because what happened was I went to the Cincinnati Royals, and I didn't go to the Knicks. I wanted to go to the Knicks. Everybody wants to go to the New York Knicks. I'm from New York. I want to go to the Knicks, but things work out different ways. So one day I get to Cincinnati, right, and Cincinnati's team. They're all from the Big Ten. Oscar Robertson, the great Oscar Robertson, he's from the University of Cincinnati. His coach, Ed Drucker, he's from the University of Cincinnati. The backups, the center, the starting center on the team, whom I'm supposed to replace, 34-year-old Connie Durking. I'm like 19 years old, 20 years old. He's 34. I'm going to replace him. No, it wasn't going to happen because he's from Cincinnati and his coach is coaching the team. And then Adrian Smith from University of Kentucky, Jerry Lucas, Ohio State, and Van Arsdale, University of Indiana. I'm coming from the Big 8 going to the Big 10. They didn't like me. So one day in practice, Oscar's bringing the ball up, and I stole it. He turned his head. I went up, I stole it. I went down to dunk it. I heard somebody say, foul. I said, Oscar, I didn't foul you, man. He said, yes, you did. So he called me a bunch of MFs. I called him a bunch of MFs. Next week, they called me in the office. I'm out of there. I went to Milwaukee. I got traded for Fred Hetzel. So I'm on Milwaukee now. Now, next year, Kareem comes. So I'm playing power forward. We have Bob Dandridge. We had a good team. And the Knicks beat us in the playoffs. They went on to win the championship that year. But I was expendable because they got Kareem now, right? And who else did they get? They got Oscar. So 1 week later, right, I'm on Milwaukee. 1 week later, they get Oscar. I'm out of there. I get traded for Bob Boozer and Lucius Allen. I come to the Sonics. They come to the Bucks. They get their ring. I don't get my ring. And so every time I see Oscar, I go, Oscar, did you do that? Did you do that? Did you get me out of there? Did you pull the string, get me out of there? He says, no, Zaid, it wasn't me. But see how things work? Oscar did the forward to my book. See? Oscar did the forward to my book. So what I think Oscar did do it, but he had a lot of regret about that. He felt bad about that, so he made it right by doing my forward. Right? He made it right by doing my forward because what I used to do, every time I saw Kareem, I tried to kill him. And one game, it was one of the top games I had. We had to beat the Milwaukee Bucks here in Seattle, and Golden State had to lose to Chicago Bulls in Chicago. So our game started first. Their game started first, but they didn't tell us the results coming from Chicago, because if they did, that might have affected us here. So anyway, in that game, I had 28 points and 20-something rebounds, and we beat the Bucks, and then we heard the final score from Chicago, where the Chicago Bulls 88, the Golden State Warriors 95. So they got in the playoffs that year. We missed it by half a game, and that's the year the Golden State Warriors went on and won the championship. I think it was Al Attles. Yeah, and they had Clifford Ray, and they had so anyway, I look back and I made in 10 of my years I made like 4 playoffs, which is not too bad. I never got to the semifinals. We got to the quarterfinals, but we didn't get to the semifinals. When I was with the Milwaukee Bucks, we beat Philadelphia. Then we went on and played the Knicks. They beat us. Then when I was with the Houston Rockets, we beat the Knicks. And then Boston beat us. Then they went on to win the championship. So I had no regrets. I played 10 years in the NBA. I was chosen. There's a thing. I was chosen as one of the greatest 500 players of all time. And there's some literature up there about that. Feel free to take it. So I've had a pretty successful career. I'm respected by a lot of NBA players. Tim respects me a lot, and he talks more about my accomplishments than I do. Yeah, so we had to shut that guy up already. So any more questions? You got one? I just want to, I've never done a basketball clinic. I never, how do I explain this? I never created a basketball clinic. I've always been involved in them. I've always come as a guest. So when I do this, it should be pretty, I'll learn a lot how how to do it, but you know, I got a pretty good knowledge of. I mean, everything's in my head, so you know, yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that because again, man, we live in some funny times, man, and I feel so sorry for my children and my grandchildren because we're up against so much these days, man. Everything, yeah.
Do you ever think about the possibility of starting like a foundation for mentors, like to create them?
Yeah, yeah, that would be good. Well, Tim, he's good at stuff like that. Yes, yeah, I thought about that, but I figured there's only so much I can do as a human being. So what I was thinking is that, like I mentioned, the 14-year-old kid who's really good, mentoring him and mentoring as many people as I can. But sometimes just a smile is a mentoring. To just saying, you know, I like you, you're a good kid. That's a mentoring. I know one guy, my daughter's on a bus with a kid last year. This kid was very, very disruptive because he used to get abused by his dad. So this kid was very disruptive. And when I go down to the Meadowbrook, the kid won't get away from me. He just won't leave me. He's glued against me because I know he knows. You know, I'm like the dad that he doesn't have. So I'm going to bring him down. So I have a plan to do things with these kids. But again, I can't. I'm limited what I can do. But again, a smile, a gesture, you know, or saying, you know, you're a good kid. That goes a long way. It's something I never had. Yes.
I did hear there was a center that you are working with in Seattle somewhere. Somewhere in Seattle, I would love to know what it was a rehabilitation.
Oh, that's what I used to do because I'm what you call a drug and alcohol professional. So I'm what you a chemical dependency counselor. That's what I do.
What was the
I,
name of that?
I worked at different places. I worked at I worked in Lacey. I worked at St. Joseph's Hospital. I worked at Highline Hospital. So, you know, and what a counselor is you know we do treatment plans for clients. So what we would have a doctor doing the medical part of it, a psychiatrist doing the psychological part of it, and me doing the social part of it, and then we come up with a treatment plan, and we make sure that that person gets the best possible health that they can get, you know, by treatment and you know reducing weaning them off the particular drug that they're coming off of, you know. So in a hospital setting, an inpatient setting. So, but I haven't worked in 10 years, so thank you. Yeah. Yes.
What's your most cherished achievement personally?
Oh wow. Well, okay. Okay, what I used to like to do is rebound. So against the Phoenix Suns, I had a high of 27 rebounds. And that was, you know, I mean, my career high of points was 37 against the New York Knicks, and it's down there. But my highest achievement was 27 rebounds in a game. And I have numerous 25, 28, 25, 23, 24. Tim knows more than I do, but I've had probably 20, 15 or 20 rebound games. So I would say I used to like to get the ball rebound because uh, it's not scoring that makes you win a game. It's rebounding because if you have the ball more than the other team, you're going to get more shots than the other team. So for me to go up there and get the rebound and to get it to my teammates, that's what I like. And there's one collegiate record that I'm very, very proud of yet also. In 1967, the dunk shot was banned for 9 years, from 1967 to 1976. And it was banned because of a play that I had done. And it was banned because of me. A lot of people think it was banned because Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Lou Alcindor. No, it was banned. The dunk shot was banned for 9 years for a play that I participated in. And Tim knows about the play. So that's NCAA history. So you couldn't dunk for 7 years. I'm sorry, you couldn't dunk for 7 years in the college. Yeah, on a play that I did. So,
Why don't you describe a little bit?
well, what happened? The great Henry Iber. At the time, Henry Iber was like John Wooden, Oklahoma State. So we're playing in Kansas City. So I got the ball off the glass. I threw it down to my teammate. His name is Raul Duarte. He's from Peru. So he goes in clumsily. He goes in and throws the ball up, and the ball comes out like this. And I reach in and take it out of the cylinder. I go sprinting down and I dunk it. So Henry Ivey gets up off the bench. He says, "That was goaltending, ref. You can't impede the basket. You can't." His hands went inside of the basket, and it was obvious goaltending. So the ref says, "Sit down, Ibra. Sit down." He said, "I'm not going to sit down." He said, "Sit down." Ibra says, "I'm not sitting down." He goes like that. Gives Ibra a tech. Ibra says, "You know what? I'm going to tell you this right now. Take it to the bank. Next year, I will ban this dunk. There will never be a dunk anymore." And the next year, he was on the rules committee, NCAA rules committee, and the next year they banned the dunk on that play. Yeah, so Tim knows about the history of that. So I'm kind of proud about that. Yeah. I'm kind of proud about that, so, that's something when you get the dunk shot banned because of you, so. Again, but, it was something I could do. Basketball was never difficult for me. It was very easy. And when I was on my team, I was an All-American, but I didn't think I was going to make the team. I thought, they might cut me. That's how I was thinking. Yes, Rudy?
Believe it or not, a lot of guys that saw that, kind of mad at you for doing that. We can't dunk no more.
Yeah, but what happened, Kareem developed a sky hook, right? He got the sky hook from that because he had to develop the sky hook. Yeah, but me too, because, okay, when I averaged just under 25 points a game at Iowa State, just under there, but I went from my sophomore year, when you could dunk, I shot 52% from the field, and I dropped all the way down to 40%. Because, I went all the way down to 40%, so I could have been averaging like 32 points a game. But what I used to do when I was experimenting, I put the ball up, the ball come out, because, you kind of, it's a different thing. You want to go like that, and, what can I say? Two more questions, okay? Very good questions about the dunk. And any more? Yes. Okay.
You were mentioning earlier how sometimes when coaches get too technical about what to do, it's kind of like going, moment to moment, be more intuitive with how you play. What in your mind, or in your career, did you ever have a coach that you really admired and looked up to, and that had the qualities that in your mind embodied being a good coach?
Personally on the team?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the best coach I've ever had, of course, was my YMCA coach back in Brooklyn. He taught me everything I know. His name is Gene Smith. He passed away quite a long time ago, but he's in my book, Gene Smith. You won't be able to see him from way over there anyway, but he's in my book. And the other coach that I really, really, really feel good about is Lenny Wilkins. Lenny was my coach. He was toward the end of his career back in the early 70s, and I came on the team, and he was my coach. And what I like about Lenny, and if you see Lenny's personality, it's like this. You don't get too much of that. So even when Lenny got mad at us, say we went on a 4-game losing streak, he goes, "Okay, you guys, come on. You got to do better than this. I'm really upset with you guys right now." That's what Lenny, because he's not going to do that. But some coaches curse us out, call us MFs, and you're going to lose your job. We're going to get rid of you. There was one particular coach, UB Brown. I was his player. Boy, he called me so many bad things, just foul mouth. It's a guy in the NBA, So, but Lenny, he was just so phlegmatic in his behavior, that. Yeah, he was my number one coach. But the greatest compliment I got from a coach was from John Wooden. He said I was the greatest player that ever played against Kareem, me and Elvin Hayes. And Elvin Hayes was player of the year, but he said we're similar in abilities, me and Elvin Hayes. So Elvin Hayes is a Hall of Famer. And keep in mind, sometimes it's the dice, it's the way it's what you get. If I would have went with a team like the Knicks, my destiny would have been better. But I went to Cincinnati. And even though I averaged 9 points, rebounds, and 9 point points. That's deceiving because what they used to do in Cincinnati, put me in a game for 1 minute, yank me out. Put me in, yank me out. So that game I got 0. And that went on from October to February. I get 0. I get 1 point. I get 2 points, but I'm putting minutes in because they were trying to destroy me. So what happened, I started way down in the bottom. So when I start scoring the 30s and the 25s, see, I only could go up a certain way because I was enmeshed in nonsense from the very beginning. So, but it has its, I mean, I was supposed to write a book, and Oscar was supposed to do the forward to it. There it is. And just to think that Oscar Robertson thought I was a good player, the greatest player who ever played basketball, for those of you who don't know, was Oscar Robertson. And I think Michael Jordan was number 2. Oscar Robertson was an incredible player. And he didn't dunk. I never saw Oscar dunk. He was too cool. So maybe that's why Michael gets more flash because he's dunking, but Oscar was, like that. So he was different. Yes.
Who's your favorite team or player playing against?
My favorite team was the Houston Rockets. Because what I did, I signed a no-year 3-cut contract. No cut 3-year contract with the Houston Rockets. And my daughter, my oldest daughter was born that year. And a lot was going on for me in my life. There was no stress in my life. So I think that's why. And it was hot in Houston in the wintertime, 80 degrees. And I think Houston probably was my favorite team. My second favorite team was the Sonics, and my worst team was Boston. I didn't like Boston at all. Because it's in the book if you're interested. I didn't play for Boston very, very long. There's a thing up there about there's an article about me up there. It's about the Celtics, and I only got 3 of them. So if you're interested in that one, you can pick that one. It's about one guy's talking about the Boston Celtics, and I only played for like 1 week there. They got me out of there, but it was unfair that they got rid of me because I was playing well when I got in the game. So I didn't like Boston at all. Yeah, couple more?
Your oldest son,
Yes.
what is that, Atlanta, Georgia?
No, that's my youngest son.
That's your youngest son?
That's my youngest. I got another son, Adam.
Okay.
Adam's my older.
I had a chance to meet him.
Yeah, he should be in the NBA. He's an incredible player.
I'm telling you, he worked out at my place.
He's an incredible player. My son, you talk about basketball players, but there's a whole lot of things going on today, and I won't go into them. If you ask me personally, I'll tell you, but I'm not going to make a big issue of it. But if you ask me, I'll tell you. But my son is a great player, and he should be in the league. But sometimes it's politics. Sometimes if you're close to the alumni, you're going to get playing time, and if you don't want to kiss anybody's butt, you're not going to get playing time. So there's a lot of politics in sports today to be in with the alumni. And some people, they're in with the alumni, and their kids get kids get pushed because my dad, he donates $25,000 a year to the alumni, and that kid better play. And you got some guys on the bench who might be better than that kid, but if they don't have the connection, it's really ugly. It's really sad. It's really sad. I'm from the old school. I put the best players out there. I don't care about the alumni. But if I did that, the alumni will get rid of me because their kid's not playing. So we live at some. I'll tell you a funny story. This is how times have changed. We know Bill Walton, right? Back in the 70s, Bill Walton was a hippie. He had long hair. Smoked a lot of weed. He had a headband around his head, and he was wild. Bill Walton. He had a motorcycle, and so one day, the first day of practice at UCLA, he comes in. He's got his hair down like this, and John Wooden, the coach, says, Bill, I want to talk to you a minute. He said, can you come over here? So Bill says, yeah, coach, what do you want? Like that. He says, that hair you got, you're going to get a haircut, right? You at UCLA. And Bill Walton says, I'm not getting a haircut. So John Wooden says, well, he takes Bill's hands. He takes Bill's hand. He said, good luck to you. Good luck. He said, I'm off the team. He said, you're off the team. I told you to cut your hair. You don't want to do it. You don't come back. Next day, Bill Walton comes back with a crew cut. And John Wooden goes, yeah. And as we say, the rest is history. But today, if you did that, the ACLU, and you're going to have a lot of problems. I mean, and that's why I look at it, and John Wooden only could have coached at that time. I don't think he could have coached today because he would have got a lot of opposition, especially when a guy comes on the team with all these tattoos on, all these tattoos. John Wooden wouldn't have been able to take that. So that's why I think that John Wooden was supposed to be in his time only, and he wasn't supposed to be in these times, you know. Any more? Yes. Yes. Yes, but a smaller one. That's kind of, yeah. I like steamed milk with some cinnamon on the top. Thank you. Okay. Any more questions? Okay. Thank you, Rudy. Thank you for showing up. Yeah, we got a secret agent over here. Daddy Longlegs. Well, thank you very much.